Hey guys, thank you for joining us today for this very special video on the last 7 years of our life since we left the United States. As you may already know, we moved to Spain on very unusual circumstances, and today we're going to share a little clip of our last 7 years to quickly summarize that time period, and then we will come back to answer some viewer questions. So let's get to it. Roll the clip.
Today,
Almost 7 years ago this month, our family of three left the United States and moved to Mexico.
we're keeping stuff and doing real stuff and growing stuff.
We were living in Charlotte, North Carolina. My husband had been living in the United States for about 25 years without authorization. The dimensions of what will be our trailer this way. That's all that we have packed right now. That's how much space we're going to have and how much stuff we're going to be able to take. And with an outstanding deportation in absentia from the 1990s. We decided to leave the country on our own without taking the risk of him being physically detained and removed. We got rid of almost all of our belongings, stored a small amount of things, bought a trailer, and left Charlotte headed towards Mexico.
Why are you loading stuff into the trailer?
Because we gotta move.
Where are we moving?
To Guadalajara. Guadalajara. Packing stuff up.
Okay.
Putting it in there. More stuff and more stuff. Here we go.
We first had to stop in San Antonio, Texas for the visas to Mexico. This is where things took the first turn that we weren't expecting. My son and I had no problem getting the residency visa, but my husband could not because he did not have legal status in the United States. From there, we had to go to Honduras in order to get his visa. The irony is that he actually qualified for Mexican citizenship, but did not have it yet. So we headed to San Pedro Sula, Honduras, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. My husband's home country, yes, but a place he no longer knew and hadn't been in for more than 2 decades. On August 31st, 2018, we left the United States on an airplane and flew to Honduras. We spent 2 weeks there securing his visa and visiting his family. We next flew to Mexico with a layover in Costa Rica. We extended the layover to 4 days so we could visit the capital and then flew to Guadalajara, Mexico. In Guadalajara, by October 2018, we had secured living arrangements within a few weeks, and I and my son returned to Texas via plane to retrieve our trailer from storage where we had left it, so that we could fly to Honduras. I drove the trailer from Houston and across the Mexican border. This is a moment I will never forget. I can't get in the details of that trip in this video, but it was very eventful. My husband met me at customs and he drove us to Guadalajara. The following year, the pandemic hit, and a few months after that, I found out I was pregnant with our second child. He was born in Mexico and at home. Through the situation of his birth in April 2020, the pandemic, and security issues, we decided to start looking for another country to live in. By November 2020, after many months of research and about 2 years after moving to Mexico, we decided to try to move to Spain. We spent 3 months aggressively preparing ourselves to apply for the Non-Lucrative visa. We applied in March 2021 and were approved in the same month and moved to Spain mid-April 2021. It is now August 2025. We are a family of 4 and have lived in Spain for 4.5 years. I am now going to answer some viewer questions, and we are going to discuss our perspective of this process on our lives. Okay, guys, so before I get started with the next part of the video, I just want to tell you that this part is going to be scripted. Actually, the whole thing, except for the question asking and answering, is scripted. And that's because I just wanted to make sure that I stay on task and that we cover all the points of the last 7 years, because it's an interesting story to some people and it's a big part of our lives. I don't normally script my videos, even though everyone tells you that you should. I don't like doing it. I rather speak spontaneously. But with having so much to say and so many people involved in the video, I wanted to give more guidance. So if it seems like it's scripted, it is, okay? So forgive me if you don't like that style. But we're going to share a little bit about our goals when we left the United States and what has been accomplished since then, and also our goals when we left Mexico for Spain and what's been accomplished in Spain. So I hope that this helps you in your own journey, especially if you're a family in the United States right now who's considering self-deportation, it's scary. I know that it is. I've lived this life, okay, as I'm telling you. And if you follow me, I talk about it fairly often on Instagram. It's scary. You have to really make a preparation in advance for what could happen. That's what we did from the beginning of our marriage, really was I was always thinking about being prepared to have to go and live in Honduras because that's the passport that my husband had, and that's the country he would have been removed to. So it's a scary life, to always be living in secret, to always be living in a way where you can't be true about who you are. You can't tell people because you never know who could report you to immigration. This is real life, and our story involves leaving the United States, moving to Mexico. In order to avoid living in Honduras, we moved to Mexico on residency visas, and then we eventually moved to Spain. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. That's what I just talked about in the clip, and I'm going to go into it in the coming segment of the video. But I just want to tell you and encourage you to be prepared. Have your options, get your digital income going, have a way to make US dollars, because that's the way that you sustain yourself in Mexico or any of these other countries where people are often from when they've come from the United States. Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Venezuela, Colombia, all of it. Coming here to Spain has been a true bonus to our life. We didn't leave the United States thinking that we were going to Spain. I mean, that was not on the radar. It became something that we were able to do because my husband continued to grow his online income at the beginning of the pandemic in Mexico. And through that, we were able to qualify for the non-lucrative visa. Okay, so I wish you the best of luck. And I just want to tell you, you can do it. We've done it. But you do need to have tools and you do need to be prepared. Okay. And so with that, I'm going to move on to the goals and things that we've accomplished and the questions and answers. Oh, yes. But don't let me forget. At the very end, I plan on asking my family in the United States one question. And I'm going to give them the opportunity to answer it. And we'll have to wait and see if they will be on the video or not with me, or if they're just going to give me an answer. I'm sure that they will answer the question. I just don't know if they'll actually come on a YouTube video with me for me to publish them on YouTube. So in the end, I'm going to be asking them a question that relates to this situation and how it affects them. It was a question I got from the viewer. It hit me right in my heart, made me emotional, think about all the things that I have missed since then. But if I talk about that right now, I might start crying. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to wait until the end and have my family in the United States with me, which I'm going to in a couple of weeks. As I've started working on this video before that trip, and I'm going to finish it hopefully during that trip and then publish it on the actual 7-year anniversary of leaving the United States. And for the first time, I will be in the United States on that day. Since 7 years, I haven't been back to the United States on August 31st of that year at all. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for continuing to watch. Thank you for your likes, your hypes. What else is there? Subscribing and commenting and sharing, right? These are all the things that I have to remember to say. All right, so I'm going to get started officially with it. The advertisement is over. Okay, so wow, that was a little emotional to watch. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy to look back on this, but it's necessary to remember where we have come from and where we are at right now.
7 is the number of completion. Here are all the things we have completed since leaving the United States. When we left the United States, we had some goals that we wanted to achieve in order to feel like we were making the best out of a negative situation. We wanted to travel, which we have done a lot of. We have been to over 20 countries since we left. We wanted to be able to be digital nomads, which we have done. Although we have chosen to settle in one place for now.
We wanted to acquire as many citizenships for the kids as possible, which we are still working on, but they do have multiple passports at this point. Ultimately, we want them to have 4 passports, and right now they have 2 and 3.
We wanted the kids to learn Spanish, which they have done, explore and learn other cultures, which has been achieved.
We didn't plan to move to Spain. When we left in the United States, we didn't plan to come back. Right?
No.
We didn't know we were going to come back. So moving to Spain became a goal after we decided to explore other possibilities outside of Mexico. Our goals for moving to Spain included obtaining the non-lucrative visa, or the NLV, and successfully renewing it 2 times, while also applying for Erwin's citizenship here in Spain, either through his grandpa or through 2 years of residency. and also to get the kids citizenship here, which is currently in process. At every turning point in our plan, we had the possibility of many alternatives that could have happened, and we planned around those possibilities. What if his citizenship did not process as quickly as some say it will? We had to plan for the second renewal of the NLV to happen, and we ended up needing it. Then once his citizenship approval came through, we had to take the next step in our plan, which was for the kids' Spanish citizenship. After their citizenship registration, we were at a turning point. Once we were in this part of the process, we knew we would need to consider what to do next: move or stay in Spain and try to live like normal people. We obviously chose the latter option of staying and trying to live like normal people because we're still here. So that's what we're doing now. Erwin is autonomo, or self-employed as it's called in the United States. The kids are in school, and we are figuring out how to live in Spain with everything that this entails. Because of the nature of our lives over the last 15 years, it is hard to feel secure with where we are. But at this point, I think we're in a good place. Erwin has citizenship. I have long-term residency with work rights. I also have a Spanish driver's license, and the kids like their school. We are also in the very long process of finding out whether or not Erwin will be able to return to the United States in 2028, which will be the 10-year mark since we left, and is also how long someone has to stay out once they are in the USA for more than 3 months without authorization. People often ask what we will do when that time comes, but we cannot answer that. We have been asked what our ideal situation is, and I believe right now, if we could make it happen, he would have a tourist visa to the United States, and we would be able to travel back and forth together and easily. But we cannot count on that ever happening. And we have to make decisions today with the information that we currently have, which is that we live in Spain, and this is where we will be for the foreseeable future. However much of it is truly foreseeable, which isn't much at all.
That's right. So on that note, now we're going to answer some questions.
Question number 1 is, what do you miss about the United States?
Food.
You miss the food?
Food.
I miss the food and I miss family events. I've answered this question already before in a previous video. I think it was in the 4-year video and also in the article that the Herald did on us last year. So it's kind of just for the newbies, the main thing that I miss is my family events and being able to travel back there. That's one thing that's different since we moved from Mexico. In Mexico, we were on the same continent and the flights were shorter and less expensive. And so moving here, we lost the lower cost of traveling back to the United States. I would love to see your list of things that surprised you in Spain, like no dryers, no air conditioning, and no ice cubes. So for one thing, since we moved here from Mexico, air conditioning and dryers and those types of like so-called first world comforts,
We had those.
it wasn't like a new thing for us. We knew already of the concept of this. Even though we had these things in Mexico, we knew plenty of people didn't. So it wasn't like we knew there it was a privilege to have these things. So it wasn't a big deal for us when we got here, and life was a little different. Life was maybe what some people consider complicated. It wasn't complicated for us. It was actually a better life than what we had there. Is there anything that surprised you about moving from Mexico to Spain that you remember? Because it's been 4.5 years and you were 7.
Food.
The food. You remember the food surprising you? What was your first surprising food?
Jamón serrano.
Jamón serrano. Do you have a story about your first experience with jamón serrano?
Well, I got a sandwich from a gas station of jamón serrano. I remember almost gagging because it was so disgusting.
And now, what's one of your favorite foods?
Jamón serrano.
Jamón serrano. Erwin, do you have something that surprised you?
One of the things that surprised me here is the transportation, how well organized everything is.
Compare and contrast living expenses for Mexico and Spain and the pros and cons of each. I would say that the housing here for us moving from Mexico to Spain, the housing was double the price of what we were paying there. The food was about triple the price of what we were paying. Even though most people who are American, they come here with that perspective and they say that, yeah, the housing is less and the food is less. But for us, because we came here from Mexico, it was a big shock at how expensive the food was and how expensive it was to have housing here, because we weren't coming from the US. We were used to paying what you pay in Mexico for that type of stuff. The next question is, once in Spain, your family has moved to several locations. Why didn't Murcia or Madrid work out? So we did live in Zaragoza when we first moved here 4.5 years ago. We lived here for 8 months in 2021. And we left. We lived here from April to November of that year, and then we left for personal reasons, I guess you could say, without getting into it. And we didn't really like it here. It was kind of dead because it was during the pandemic. The weather was cold, and we just honestly, like, I personally wasn't prepared for the climate, and I wasn't prepared to put my kids in school full time. And so when the school that we were going to did not work out, we decided to leave, and we went to another school that had flexible attendance options, which was in Murcia, and that's why we moved there. And then while we were there, we lived there for I think about 15 months or a little over a year. We had actually 2 Christmases there, and we ultimately left Murcia again because the school that was there they didn't close down, but they lost their registration. The things that we didn't like about Murcia were that the public transportation was not well organized. There was only one bus in the area that we lived, which was El Puntal, slightly north of the city center, and there just wasn't a lot to do. Maybe that's changed a little bit. We did live there still during the pandemic when masking and limited group activities and stuff like that was still going on. So probably our experience is tainted a little bit by that, but it wasn't a good fit for us. So then when the school no longer worked out for us, that's when we decided to move to Madrid. Um, we liked living in Madrid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we love living in Madrid. We have nothing negative to say about Madrid except that it's expensive. There were tons of schools there, tons of English things, tons of activities of every type. I mean, you could live there for years and not get everything done. The only negative thing for us was the cost of living. The cost of living was really high. We didn't have a car, and in order to live in a situation where we could easily access things, we needed to be in the city center. Not the city center like where the Retiro Park is, but the city center of Madrid is actually technically bigger than that. So we lived in the northern area in Chamartin, but near kind of somewhat near the train station, but not really. That's up there. So if you think of the north and south parameters of Madrid being the train stations, the one at the north and then Atocha at the south, that's a lot of space that you can actually live in. The cost of living was just too high, and it was not sustainable for us.
Also, the schools were from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 p.m. And we also had other things that we wanted to do with the kids, and we couldn't do anything because they were in school all day.
Yeah, we didn't like the school schedule in Madrid because they had the jornada partida, which is where you go in 2 different parts of the day and you have lunch in the middle. And then they had their extracurricular activities after school. So they would be gone until, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes he would. So he also didn't like the long class day. And so we decided to move to Zaragoza because they have, it's a better position between the two major cities, Barcelona and Madrid. I've done tons of content on this already. There's lots to do here. We already knew that because as we had moved to Murcia, Madrid, we had still been coming back here. So we were still like plugged in with what was going on here. We just weren't living here. So we had already made multiple trips here, and we knew that how things were changing and stuff like that. The cost of living is lower here. It was we brought our cost of living down around 1,500 euros when we moved from Madrid to Zaragoza, and we needed to do that. It's a better option for us long term that we can stay here long term and sustain ourselves. And also, there are many schools here that have the jornada continua, which is where they start school at 9 and they finish at 2. They don't necessarily have to have lunch at school or leave school and then come back. And so that's basically why every move that we've made has revolved around education, and then it just so happens that the move from Madrid to Zaragoza also revolved around finances. Okay, the next question is to speak about your experience in Mexico and what drove your decision to move to Spain. 4 years ago, I did many videos on this topic of moving from Mexico to Spain because it was fresh on my mind back then. The main things with moving from Mexico to Spain were security issues and also medical. One of the main topics that Americans like to talk about moving to Mexico is the low cost healthcare. And medical care in Mexico is very complicated. And essentially, they can hold you in the hospital until you pay your bill. So aside from that little policy that they have, we had our child that was born there, and he ended up being in the NICU in Mexico, and it was a really bad experience. So when you tell someone that Mexico has really great healthcare, and then when you need the healthcare and you experience it and it's not really great, then it's like, why am I staying here? Because there are many negatives. There are still positives, and I've talked about this in my Instagram stories plenty of times, that if things don't work out for us in Spain, there's a good chance that we will go back to Mexico. I mean, that's always on the table for us. So it's not like we absolutely hated living there. It's just that we wanted better long-term options for our kids. We think about, we're not Americans. I'm not an American who is thinking, oh, if this doesn't work out, I can go back to my country. Like tons of people who move here do. Like, no, I am an immigrant. I am a true immigrant. Like, I am in exile from the United States because they're not welcoming to my entire family, and I cannot live there in peace and liberty and freedom with my spouse. And until immigration changes in the United States, I have to stay in exile. And then after
And
it does,
I am Mexican.
he's Mexican. And after it does change in the United States, it's possible that our kids are too comfortable and we're too well established here to really want to leave. You stay somewhere for so many years and you don't want to go. And that's what you're seeing in the United States right now. Everyone wants to know, why are people staying here for 20 years and not getting citizenship? Why have they been here for this long and not left? Well, you build a life That's why you build a life and you don't really want to go back. You have your kids, you have your family, your friends, you feel settled, you have roots. And so we've started over twice already in 7 years. And I finally actually feel, with the idea that 7 is a number of completion, I personally actually feel like I'm figuring it out now. And it's taken me this long. And now I imagine turning around and going back to my home country and having to start over again for the third time in a decade. It's not always that tempting. Now, when things get hard here, I do feel like I want to run away and be like that movie where she clicks her toes and her shoes and leaves and just evaporate from this place. But life's not easy. Things are difficult because I don't know the language, the culture, and there's a lot of complications with that's involved with that. But ultimately, that's the long answer. The short answer is security and healthcare. The benefit of healthcare did not end up being everything that we thought it was going to be. And since that benefit, which is very significant, was gone, the reality of it was not what we thought it would be. And so we left. Spain has much better healthcare, a better education system, a much better education system than Mexico, a better university system. It's safer for university students. It's safer for our kids to walk around. Our kids have so much more independence here, so much more space to move around and do things, outside, inside, everywhere. There is a feeling of safety here. Unlike there, you look around and you can tell that people are on edge when you're there. The locals, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people who live in an expat bubble. I'm talking about people who live in cities like we want to live in, and there is crime, and you know that there's crime, and you're always on your guard, and you're told to do certain things in order to keep yourself safe. And I really didn't have a lot of independence in Mexico because I and he did not feel comfortable with me going out alone. It was always like I needed to have a bodyguard with me. We had to live in a neighborhood with security guards, with the chicken wire fence on the cement walls. People who lived in houses that were not in cotos, which is what those neighborhoods are called with the walls. They would have broken glass on the tops of their walls to keep people from coming into their homes. So you look around and you see what people are using for home security, and you realize that if these guys don't feel safe, then why should I? That's how I operate wherever I go, is to look around and see what's happening with the native people, the people who know things that I don't know. And in Spain, there's peace. There's a slower pace of life because people are not working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. typically, with very little breaks for very low wage, having to work 7 days a week. That it is a better lifestyle and work environment here. It's a better family environment here. It's a better community environment here. Not to say anything against Mexicans. We have lots of Mexican family, and I love Mexico. I love tacos. One of the things I miss the most about Mexico is the food. I do like the food in Mexico better than Spain, but all in all, it's better for us here if we can sustain it. If we can't sustain living here, then our fallback option is Mexico, because the fallback option after that is Honduras, because we don't need visas to go to either one of those places, and we would be able to go easily and live there and not need to go through the residency process. But Honduras is obviously more dangerous than Mexico, and so that's why if we needed to leave Spain and we couldn't go back to the United States, we would still go back to Mexico. It's just that being here is better. It's a better situation for us, but it doesn't mean that we hate Mexico or that we would never go back there, because it's honestly in the forefront of our minds that we might go back there. How has your husband been able to keep working remotely for a company created in the USA?
I do freelance consulting for companies in the United States, and I also own websites where I have Google AdSense.
Okay, guys, so now we're going to wrap this up and tell you thank you for watching and thank you for your interest in our story. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, so it's very early in the morning on September 1st. It's a couple of weeks after I started making this video back in Spain. It's been 7 years as of yesterday since we left the United States, and I'm here visiting, which I've already gone through all of that already in the video. Life has gotten away from me here because I've been so busy here. So look, I'm actually filming in the bathroom because my kids are still asleep. And this is where I have light and the ability to talk without waking them up. So I only have one family member's writing to read. It's not all of them. I haven't been able to ask everybody, so I feel like this is a very impactful statement regardless, because it comes from my sister. And so I'm going to read her words, and then I'm going to end this and post it right away. This is so funny because now I'm sitting on the floor of the bathroom. And I'm using the toilet where I'm going to read what she wrote. And the glare is kind of bad from the computer in my eyes, so sorry. Okay, this is probably going to be an unedited portion because this whole clip of what I already told you, and then as soon as my kids wake up, we have to go downstairs and have the breakfast at the hotel, and then get on and say bye to my dad and go on to our next city. And so I'm not going to have time to edit this. I'm just going to add it onto the video the way that it is, completely unedited. So I apologize if it's not as perfect as it should be. Okay, let me fix this. There. Like you can see all my stuff back there. Okay, so this is from my sister. And hopefully I can read this without the sadness, yes. Okay, it says, Ashley and I are only 16 months apart and went through hell together as children. She was always my rock, so navigating life without her has been emotionally difficult. I've only seen her and my nephews once since they left the United States, and I've not seen my brother-in-law at all. Financial barriers have prevented me from traveling to see them, and it is painful. Through all of this, Ashley has shown an incredible resilience that I admire deeply. She has had an unshakable strength since we were kids, and to see her continue to fight for her family's safety and well-being is a source of pride for me. Eventually, they moved to Spain in search of safety and stability. Life in Spain is safe and brings them a peace that was unavailable for them in the United States, and for that I'm thankful. Ashley's journey is one of survival, resilience, and love. She has faced unimaginable challenges, yet she continues to forge a life for her children. I couldn't be prouder of who she is and the sacrifices. I'm gonna cry. And the sacrifices she's made to keep her family together. Deportation has taken so much from us, but it hasn't broken our bond, no matter the distance. I'll always be there, supporting her from afar, waiting for the day that they can come home. And so this was the statements. This was the statements from the question about how does deportation affect my extended family here. And I think that that's a really good one. And regardless what anyone else would say, it would be something like that. And so with that, I thank you for watching. I thank you for taking the time. Possibly, I hope that you will learn. I hope that you will take the time to learn how people are affected by immigration policies in the United States, also how their families. And if you're not someone who really necessarily cares, because I know there are a lot of people like that, I hope that you will develop the empathy that is needed to care, that you would consider the possibility of compassion for your fellow humans, that we are people. We are all created in the image of God, me and you and all of them. So I thank you for watching. I thank you for listening. And if you're someone who's about to walk in my shoes and want to have the same path as me, I would love to answer any of your questions. And just know that you can do it. You put one foot in front of the other, and it's actually a better life out here with your family and with peace and safety and the freedom to move around and cross borders. Just not within the United States, of course, but everywhere else we can go. Okay, it's been worth it. It's not been easy. It's been hard, but it's been worth it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.